Okay, all, good evening and welcome to Safeoclock Health and Safety Interactive Workshop for today, the 4th of January 2024. So we are happy to have ourselves all together again in this new year. So this is the first edition of our interactive workshop for the year 2024. And we are starting with permit to work procedure. So that is the topic we are discussing today. And like we always do, after brief presentation, we'll give room for everyone to contribute, share your own experience, and tell us how you implement permit to work procedure in your workplace. Then from there, we can also ask questions, answer questions, direct ourselves, and correct ourselves where required. So that is the aim of our interactive workshop, to ensure that we improve each other's knowledge and benefit from each other's experiences. So without wasting much time, I will allow Mr. Steve to share his screen so that he will start his presentation. I'll bring up mine later after his.
Okay. It's good evening, everyone. Yeah, I hope we have an excellent Xmas and still in the New Year mood. So today, as we all know, the topic for today is permit to work procedure. At least for those of us who are within the profession, have a understanding, have this basic understanding about what permits to work procedure should be, except for those who are new or who intend to go into the health and safety profession. This is a platform where you can learn and gain some insights that will also help you along the line. Now, this presentation about permit to work, it's going to cover, or we are going to explore some certain areas. Okay, so we'll just briefly touch the introduction of permit to work system. Then we'll look at the purpose for a permit to work procedure. Why do we do such in the workplace? When does permit to work is required? You know, because it is not all activity that require permit to work procedure or system. Then we'll also just look a brief picture about the types of permit to work, the key components of permit to work procedure. We'll also look at roles and responsibility. We'll look at procedure in action, that's a step-by-step process. Then we'll look at the challenges and best practice. Then the last slide will just be on a conclusion. Now, for the introduction aspect, the permit to work system is a safe system of work with formal written procedure used to control access and activity of personnel within the workplace. Okay, there are so many definitions, but at the end of the day, we may mean same thing. Okay, now the permit procedure is a vital part of ensuring safety in various industries, including that of construction and manufacturing. It is used in virtually all industries. Okay, so it also provides a kind of systematic approach to manage hazardous tasks or high-risk activity and protect workers and property as well. You know, so the focus is not just only on workers. To an extent, to a certain extent, it could also prevent property. So it also serves as a means of communication between site management supervisors, operators, and those who carry out the work activity, because when a formal process of permit to work system is introduced in a particular site or project, when I mean introduced, that's being implemented, you discover that when the process is duly followed in compliance, then you will know that the permit to work system is a document of communication. The activity, you cannot just go to site and carry out such an activity. So it creates that chain of communication between the site management and some other group of individuals within such work activity. Now, for the purpose, what are the purpose why we do carry out permit to work procedure? The purpose is for hazard identification. Okay. We are able to identify potential hazard before any start of work. You know, we have other several means of safe system of work, because permit to work is part of safe system of work. Like the risk assessment is part of the safe system of work, method statement and all that, so many, but this is just one out of the several safe system of work that we have within the workplace. Now, like I said, the purpose is for us to identify hazard of such an activity that are needed to be carried out, and also to assess the risk of the hazard, okay? And it also gives authorization. So without authorizing such document, nobody can be able to carry out such an activity, because the authorization set a clear, defined responsibility and requirement for authorizing work. So that is one strong area about the permit to work. If the person who is supposed to authorize the permit is not there to do it, such work activity cannot be carried out. Okay, like I said earlier, it's another means of communication whereby it ensures effective communication between parties involved regarding the work. Now, when does permit to work is required? I just have this brief chart here, because before you carry out some certain activity, there are certain questions that needed to be asked, okay? Now, for example, you might say, has the risk assessment been carried out for the process or activity? If it is no, it means you have to carry out a risk assessment, okay? Now, if the risk assessment has been carried out, then do the significant risks still exist after the control measure have been implemented? If the answer is no, okay, sorry, if the answer is no, that means do significant risks still exist? If it's no, then it means that permit to work is not required. Okay, but if it is yes, you go further by saying, does the document safe system of work / method statement exist? If it is no, you have to formulate one. Okay, you need to create either the one of the safe system of work, either its assessment or method statement, to be able to manage such risks. So now you now ask yourself, okay, does the document safe system of work and method statement exist? If the answer is yes, you go further and ask again, does significant risk still exist following formulation of safe system of work? Because when you introduce all this safe system of work, is for you to control and reduce the risks to the barest minimum. If they still exist, okay, then what you do is that if it exists, it means you have to go what? Introduce what we call permit to work system. But if it doesn't, if there is no risk involved in such activity, then there is no need. Permit to work is not required at that point. Okay, so it is very clear when we're able to ask this certain question, when we check the activity as a professional, we need to understand this a particular activity they are about to carry out on site. So if we have this kind of pictorial question, we ask ourselves like that, if all these things are in place, then we know that such thing need to be implemented as permit to work. But if all those things are required and all risk has been cleared completely, then definitely I don't see the need for permit to work with such an activity. But if it still exists, then the permit to work will just be some form of additional safe system of work, because the risk assessment would have been in place, the method statement and all that, all other control measures would have also be in place. Then with the addition of permit to work, it will now enhance or strengthen the control measure to prevent risks of such an activity. Now, this slide will just give us a different type of permit to work system, okay? Because I just want us to have this picture, you know, especially for the benefit of those who are intending professional or those who probably want to refresh our memory. We have different form of permit to work, but we'll not be going into details into it because we're just looking at the procedure and all that. So we have code work permit, we have confined space permit, we have earthwork permit, we have excavation or ground penetration permit, we have roof work or work at height permit, we have ionizing radiation permit, we have high voltage electrical work permit, diving permit, chemical permit. You know, the type of permit determines, or your kind of industry will determine the kind of permit that to be used. Okay, so different industry has different form of permit. If you work in an industry where there is no lifting activity, you might not need lifting permit. But if you work in an industry where there's lifting of materials, high risk lifting activity, for sure you know that you need this. In some cases, in this part of where we are, that is always is high temperature area, rarely will you see people using code work permit. But in some other area, when you begin to go to the Europe and America, you discover that the code work permit might be necessary because of the nature of the weather condition. Then, looking at the components of a permit to work procedure, a permit to work, when you look at the form, okay, or the document, in whichever way, there are some important aspects. You know, in this my presentation, I just focus on the key components. There are other components I will show you in the next slide, like the sample of permits in my project facility where I'm using. I just have a kind of screenshot to project. So it involves a lot of information, but basically the key component is your work description, because your work description will be able to tell whoever handles, who is going to approve that permit, that okay, this is what you want to do, and with the knowledge, you know, of that person who is issuing the permit or who is approving the permit, he will be able to also have knowledge about the hazard that are involved and also the control measure. So whoever is also applying for the permit will also need to have all this knowledge, because you know it's not like, oh, somebody you want to apply for permit, the supervisor want to apply for permit, he doesn't understand the hazard or risk involved in such activity which they are going to carry out. So that is why sometimes, you know, and there's this word that says safety is everyone's responsibility. So if you believe it is only safety that is going to know about the hazard and the control measure, then it is very, very wrong. Okay, right from the supervisor, right from the workers, they need to understand the risks behind what they need to do, especially the supervisor or the line managers who are supervising them, because they will be the one who is going to probably apply for this permit. They need to understand and be able to identify it. That is why in some sites you see they have to tick and all those things. Then for the safety side, we have to verify most of all these things before we finally do our job. Okay, so like I said, the component part is the work description, identifying the hazard of that description of work activity and the control measure, because which is going to set that guidelines, you know, in order to mitigate the risk of the identified hazard, which has been identified. Now, you could see the sample here. Okay, like now you see in details. I just try to put this so that we can see the details of how it looks like. Different organization, different industry might have different formats, but at the end of the day, we are aiming at the same, because the risk involved in work at height might be different in when you are working with in a confined space, in excavation and all that. So differences may occur. So that's why you see different form of permit to be able to suit in or to fit in into this different kind of activity. Like if you see the sample I have here, you could see is like a general work permit, and to an extent, we can also use it for a hot work permit, because in a facility management, you might not be able to begin to have all those different type of permit, because we have more restricted kind of activity. You know, you cannot be seeing excavation there, you might not be seeing code activity, lifting, some high risk lifting like that. So it varies, like I said, but I will just make a reference with this from a facility management background. Okay, you see that there's a location of work, which is very, very important. It must be in the permit form. Okay, now we have what we call the equipment to be worked on. Okay, like I'm saying, this is from the facility background. in some site, you might not have equipment to be worked on. Okay, so but it comes like that. Then you look at the description. So you have to state the description. Okay, so now below that, you see a special precaution. Okay, or maybe you have a special tools, whatever you want to use. Then, having said that, you now look at a kind of personal protective or other requirements, like what we have here. You can see the use of PPE and all that, all those things you need to do in order to reduce the risk. And don't forget, a lot of control measure has been put in place before, because you don't just use permit to work system like that. You must have conducted your method statement, drafted your risk assessment, apply all control measure. This is just like a supplement, into the entire control process, of mitigating risks on site. Okay, now you see there are a lot of PPE that are required based on the activity. Now, when you go down, you see electrical isolation, if it requires to be electrical work that need to be isolated, mechanical isolation that require valve, pressure system, etc. There's fire suppression and alarm system, there's firefighting sprinkler system, air conditioning, and all that. So, like I said, this is for a specific industry. Okay, this is what a sample of what I use in my current project facility. Now you see the job planning safety checklist. So when you go to the back of the permit, you see some certain things. So when you look at it, you see roof, gantry elevation, fire protection system, mobile elevator work platform, hazardous material, access equipment, scaffold and mobile tower, hot work, electrical. So basically these activities are what is peculiar to what we do in the facility. So this permit is able to fit in for all this form of activity. And if you see below it, you see name of company. It could be because we deal with a lot of subcontractors, okay, coming to do a lot of maintenance work. You see the permit holder or the permit receiver. In some cases, they can say permit receiver. You have the signature, the mobile number, permit issuer, signature, designation, emergency phone number, date of issue, time of issue, expiring date, expiring time. If the job is completed, the permit has to be returned. It needs to be signed. The receiver has to sign also to confirm that, okay, everything has been done and the site has been kept clear from any additional hazard or existing one, as the case may be. Now, you could look, like in this, my sample of permit, at the back, you see a kind of checklist, depending on the kind of activity you are doing. So a lot of questions are asked, okay, because these are the things we're going to be going back before we finally approve such permit to work, to ensure that all these questions, all these things are available in order for us to do a final approval of the permit, as we all know, based on our knowledge about permit to work system. So now, when it comes to the permit system and permit to work procedure, there are people who have responsibility as far as this document called permit to work is concerned. Okay, like I've mentioned, like you see from the form, we have the permit issuer, the person responsible for issuing the permit and ensuring all necessary precautions are taken. The permit receiver, the authorized individual who receive and carry out the work according to the permit requirements. Then we have the work supervisor, the supervisor who oversee the work activity and ensuring compliance with the permit condition. Now, an HSE representative is the health safety and environmental representative who monitors the work and ensures safety regulations are followed. In some cases, you discover that both the representative or the HSE coordinator or HSE officer or the permit coordinator, as the case may be, in most cases, some organizations, they merge it together. So you find out that even the HSE coordinator, permit coordinator is doing a kind of dual function. But in a modernized and more advanced way, it's supposed to be a different role and responsibility. But in some cases, you see they merge it together. I will pour more light on that when I go to one other slide like that. So when we focus on the procedure itself or the step-by-step process, you discover that step one has to do about the work assessment. Okay, in this process, what is the work assessment? We have to conduct a thorough assessment of the work, identify the potential hazard, and require control measure. Somebody will not just come to you, they want to apply for permit, and even you just check paperwork, blah, blah, blah. No, you still need to visit the site as an health and safety personnel, or whoever is issuing the permit, with the supervisor of the work activity. You go there, you look at the activity with your level of expertise. You should be able to bring out certain information regarding hazard, identifying the potential hazard regarding to that work activity, and also you be able to deploy a control measure to such an activity. And also on step 2, which will require the permit application itself. Okay, then the person responsible should apply for the permit, provide details of work activity. You as a safety, you don't know what they want to do. They need to tell you exactly what they want to do. Okay, and they should also have the knowledge, okay, of providing the necessary precaution. That is why I say safety is everyone's business. It's everyone's responsibility. You will not just wait for only safety to begin to tell you, you must do like this. So everybody must be knowledgeable. All supervisor must be knowledgeable about the risk, about hazard that is involved within their activity, to make the process to be smooth. Now, in step 3, then the permit authorization. So that is where whoever is issuing the permit, whoever is the permit coordinator, or whoever is issuing it, or the authorized person comes in. So the authorized personnel review the permit application. It looks at everything, what activity, with your knowledge, like I've said, as an health and safety expert, you should be able to deduce certain things. If those conditions, haven't checked the checklist, all those areas, haven't looked at it critically and found out that everything are in place, then you authorize for the work to be carried on. But if everything is not complete, then it is not advisable to authorize such permit, because if it authorize such permit, what is the essence of you following the procedure in the first place? You know, so it is very important that if those things are not met, an alternative or a provision must be made, you know, to reduce that risk involved with such an activity before one can be able to approve such permit. Now, I have a kind of flow chart here, okay? The responsible supervisor will have to originate the permit, because the permit must originate from somewhere, which is the responsible supervisor for such an activity. Okay, then the permit receiver, okay, we review and verify the permit. Okay, then the HSE permit coordinator or the permit issuer. Like I said, in some cases or industry, you see the permit coordinator and issuer might be doing the same function. And also you discover that the responsible supervisor or permit receiver might be also one person doing same function in some cases. But in some advanced industry, depending on the kind of risk activity, you see that they are splitted. Everybody has that different roles and responsibility. But in some cases, or will I say most cases, when it goes to construction, you see everything are combined. You know, everything are combined. They just, either the two up is combined, the two down are also combined. So once that is done, and you are able to authorize or approve the permit, then the work will be carried out. Okay, now, once the work is carried out successfully and the work is finished, that is the end of the permit. But if you need to ask yourself the question, is the work completed or finished? If it is no, then there will be need for extension or revalidate. Okay, because the date that was written in the permit has elapsed, but the work is yet to be completed. So at that point, you need to revalidate the permit. Okay, you go back to the permit coordinator or the authorized person who issued the permit to do what we call revalidation of this permit, in the sense that they have to extend the date for another day, for another week, depending on the industry. In some industry, the permit is issued on a daily basis. In some industry, it is issued on a weekly basis. In some industry, you can even issue permit for 1 month, depending, like in most facility, you could issue for up to 2 weeks, 1 week, and even a month, as long as the risk is not more of high risk and it's more of a PPM, preventive maintenance. So in such case, you can just give a permit for such length of period. Now, if you say the permit, if the work is closed or finished completely, then you close the permit. Okay, the permit will be closed, and that is from the receiver, the permit receiver and the issuer will have to close the permit. If you see the sample of what I showed you, you see that there's a portion for who received the permit and who issued it. Okay, for them to sign to make sure that everything has been done, the work, the area is safe without creating additional risk or hazard. Then, having said that and having done that, the next stage will now be the permit coordinator will now file the completed permit for record purpose. Now, I would like to make us understand that for everything we do, there are always challenges. In any procedure, there's always a challenges. And also, we should understand also other aspects of best practices. So for the challenges, addressing potential challenges such as non-compliance, inadequate hazard identification, inadequate resources, lack of management commitment. These are some of the challenges we can face, in the process of permit to work procedure. Because the truth is that if you find yourself in an organization that they don't comply to most of the safety requirements, this will form part of the challenges you face, even if you have an existing permit to work system. Okay, so if management is not committed, people are not working in collaboration, people are not in support, then there will be inadequate hazard identification, because it's not one person's job. It's not just the safety representative or the safety officer or manager or whoever the person is responsibility alone. Because sometimes the workers, as long as they have the knowledge, they are going to be the one that is supposed to even spot most of the hidden hazard. That is why it is good that training is very, very important. People need orientation to be able to know what kind of hazard are available in the kind of activity they do, reorientation, retraining for them to be exposed to those things so that they can be able to identify and spot it. Because as a safety representative, you will not be there at all times. So they are the one who carry out the activity. They are the one that are going to spot it at the spot of them doing their job or before doing their job. So for the best practices, implementing industrial leading practices to improve the effectiveness of permit to work procedure. Also, benchmarking and compliance with the regulatory requirement or standard is very essential. Okay, because we could also, when we talk of benchmarking, we should also look at similar industry. Maybe you are working in construction, you can look at other companies, other organizations who also are complying with this process, look at the permit procedure and understand how they've been doing well about it. You use it to benchmark, use it to check out what you are doing within your organization, if you are in the best level of implementing your permit to work system. So if there is lapses or gaps, then you'll be able to make amend to ensure that everything is done, And when we talk about best practice, we need to know how to report any hazard, keep workplace area clean and tidy, wear protective clothing, PPE, very, very mandatory. If you have any illness or condition, make sure, the workers should ensure that they say it to their supervisor, they report to their supervisor that they are aware of it so that they are not being exposed, to the risk within the work site. And also discuss any concern that you may have to do with health and safety requirements regarding the job activity. This will be discussed with the health and safety representative. And also, the workers need to take the work seriously. No foul play, all those things that are done on site to predispose them to the risk as it in regards to their work activity. Then lastly, I would just want to conclude by saying a robust permit to work procedure is essential for safeguarding workers by preventing accidents and or property damage. By following the correct process and incorporating best practices, company can create a safer working environment for all, and not just on the focus on the worker, because when you have a safe working environment, it's a big or huge return on investment. And as a professional, we have to come out to prove this to our top management. I love using the word return on investment. Any top management, any company, what they are interested in is what we call return on investment. Gone are those days, safety just go like that. But these days, we are using a different dimension. You have to prove to them. You have to bring statistic evidence, to show them that, yes, this is how a company can save money if they comply to health and safety. If the environment is safe, the company can save huge lot of money. That is the return on investment. Not that you go and do some sales outside to bring money. Yeah, if you can prevent and have a good working environment where workers are free from accident, the property are free from damage, then the company will be saving a lot instead of wasting money on legal issue, on reputational damage, on court cases, on compensation, so many of them on treatment and all that. So I think I would like to end my short presentation on that. Maybe Mr. Johnson will emphasize on some area I'm unable to touch, because this is a professional discussion. If we want to make it lengthy, we must spend more than an hour here, and just for the benefit for others to share their own experience. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for giving me this opportunity to give my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen. We appreciate you as always. Just like he has said, this our interactive workshop is an opportunity for us to learn from each other and enlarge our horizon. So he has touched most of the parts of the permit to work procedure, but I will just give brief presentation before we open the floor for others to contribute. Okay, so he has made mention of, he has defined permit to work procedure, and he has defined also what is permit. And I wouldn't start going through those again. So we know that permit to work is required in different aspects or different segments of activities. So depending on the industry, it might be doing a maintenance or repair work. If the hazard is significant and the activity most times is non-routine, then you require permit to work. During construction and demolition works, also permit to work is required, because there are different high-risk activities involved, like use of machineries and equipment, work at height. These activities poses a very high risk, and using a permit to work to control the risk could be very add a significant control to it. So hot work as well. Hot work simply means those activities that will involve flames and heat, sparks, like welding, cutting, all those activities require permit to work to control. Okay, then other hazardous activities involving radiations, maybe use of chemicals and hazardous substances also require permit to work. Working in confined space also, I think last time we discussed confined space procedure. So this also is a permit required activity. So in all these, what is more important is for health and safety professional to be fully involved in the permit to work procedure, in the sense that you should be involved from the beginning to the end, even though you are not the one to raise the permit. And depending in your industry, even if you are not the one to approve the permit, but you should follow this process from the beginning to the end. You should be able to know if the hazard has been properly identified. You should verify that the permit was properly filled, the date is accurate, and all this, the risk identified, the control measures are efficient or sufficient. And you should also be able to identify that the person obtaining the permit is competent, because permit receiver is not just everybody, but it should be somebody that is competent, that has gone through the permit procedure training. So Stephen has actually discussed rules and responsibilities of those who are involved in a permit to work. So I wouldn't go through all of them again, but one of the people responsible that I want to talk about are other personnel, in the sense that there are people that will be affected by your activities. So in as much as they are not directly part of that your activity, it does not mean that they will not be considered, or they are not part of that consideration while obtaining permits. So there is what is called CMOS, or simultaneous activities. So if there are activities going on side by side where there are activity that the permit to work is being issued for, so those people need to be adequately informed, and they should be adequately carried along. So those are the other people that should be considered, not just the worker, the supervisor, issuer. So because there are some risks that will be extended to them, and they should be aware of those activity and that risk emanating from your activity as well. So now he has taken time to also talk about the contents of permit to work. So I won't go deep into that, but I will use this opportunity to enumerate some of my experience that I had. Some years back, I was a permit to work coordinator in one of the projects for FIFA World Cup. So I was able to have a first-hand experience of how the permit procedure goes. In that my project, the permit originates from the supervisor. So the supervisor he has the blank format of the permit, depending on the activity he wants to carry out. So he fills out that permit, goes and implements the control measures, and this is verified by an authorized permit issuer. So we have somebody called permit issuer, authorized, like a project engineer or site engineer, that will verify that the control measures are all in place, and he signs as an authorized permit issuer. Then our own scope as health and safety permit coordinator is to confirm that those control measures that he has stated in the permit to work document are available on site, and to confirm that the signatures of the permit issuer is valid and is accurate. Then the date, the location, and the time of the permit will confirm that these informations are all accurate and complete. Then we countersign to give go ahead that the permit is now about to be used. Now, at the end of the shift, each of the permits have to be closed, signed by the permit issuer and the permit receiver, then returned to the permit office after all the control measures has been verified and the work location has been returned to normalcy. So the permit can now be considered closed if or the work location is considered safe. But if the work location is found not to be in a safe condition, then the permit will not be accepted as closed, and the supervisor will have to go and return the location to normalcy before the permit could be accepted as closed. There are some situations where people can extend permits. Some permits can be extended for few hours. In some cases or in some times, the workers might need to work extra hours, maybe 1 or 2 extra hours. So that will be extended by both the permit issuer and the permit coordinator to ensure that there is proper communication and to notify everybody that such activity is being extended and is ongoing at that time. So this is just a brief summary of my personal experience. And as the time is going, so I will open the floor for others to contribute and maybe give 1 or 2 experience discussions. All right, the floor is open now. Okay, Mr. Andrew, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Good to see you all again. Happy New Year.
Wish you the same.
And I can see the New Year is really sweet. I can see Mr. Steve, Mr. Johnson. Your face is really looking New Year. And my other senior colleagues, I greet everyone. Yeah, the topic permits to work is actually a very good one. And this presenter has elaborated on the procedure and all that. It's very interesting. One thing I want to point out regarding permits, just as the going says, that the permit to work could be as useless as the paper if it's not the procedure that are spelled out are not adequately coordinated or be implemented. Sometimes in our organization, we find out that they just look at it as a piece of paper, but at the end of the day, if it's not well implemented, that spells catastrophic situation. In most case study that we have had, most major incidents that have occurred in industry is because of the failure to implement the permit appropriately. Sometimes they just tick, 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 and people sign and go. And one other thing, for instance, they will impose the permit on the HSE personnel to be the one to issue the permit, to be the one to sign the permit, to be the one to do everything. And engineers, they feel relaxed. In that aspect, that is no longer a permit to work. It is just a work confusion. So from my own experience, 1 or 2 opportunities I've had to be in the position where I sign permit, and make sure, get the simple understanding that you are not, as the HSE representative, you are not authorized to sign any permit when the permit has not been issued or requested by an engineer, the work owner. As safety personnel, you are not the activity owner. So you are not actually, don't allow people to impose it on you to just issue permit. If you issue the permit and you are not the work owner, if anything happens, automatically you will be held responsible. So from my own experience, I'll make sure that who is applying for the permit should be the one that have the knowledge and the knowledge of the hazard and the work he's going to be is going to execute, and the process to follow has to be spelled out. The JHA has to be attached that identify all the risk and the control measure. The job description and the plan, if there are any drawings, have to be attached. Then the other parties have to, just as Mr. Justin appointed, have to have the knowledge, the competency to be who to receive the permit, have the knowledge of the work activities and the hazard, and the crew who will be executing the job are well explained to the hazards and the control measure that need to be followed for the job and all that. So in all, you have already spelled out the procedure and all that. So the communication aspect is very vital, that every party needs to be communicated. So in some cases, we have permits to work that involve different industry, different companies, different asset owners will be involved in that permit. So in that case, there must be a clear line of communication between different asset owners that affect a particular task, just as Mr. Justin has pointed at, something that's related to SIMO, simultaneous operation. Sometimes we may have two companies that have a related activities, or one activity is affecting another activity. In that aspect, there will be another permit that is needed for the job, not just your own permit as the work owner. So in that case, you must make sure that the communication, there's no communication gap. You must inform the other asset owner or the other process owner of the work you are going to do. Because if you go on, go on with your permit, you already gotten a permit from your own industry, and you go out to work, maybe in Karama, something that related to Karama, and you destroy Karama process or their installations. That will be a very big problem that it can even lead to a huge amount of fines. So in that aspect, we need to keep the communication open. Information needs to be passed to all parties. Just recently, I had an experience where my engineer was telling me that you are the safety, you need to pursue these people, you need to chase them, you need to catch them, you are a police. I told him that, look, engineer, don't tell me I'm not a police. You are the one that is responsible for this permit. You should know who is responsible. You should supervise the job. Don't tell me to go and catch people. Let the people know the process. We are not here to pursue people. We need to let them know the process and who is responsible for who. So responsibility needs to be spelled out accurately for people to know what they are doing. But if we allow people to impose it on us, automatically we'll be bearing the brunt of all the responsibility. And if anything happens, that can spell a big problem for us as HSE officers. So in other aspects I'm trying to say, we must understand the process to details and to understand whoever that is involved. And we must keep the communication. We must bridge the communication gap to make sure that everyone is carried along. In one experience I had, I have to tear the permit. I go to that extent, I tear the permit, I tear the JHA, and this guy was telling me, he was even setting blows, he's going to beat me up. I told him, you don't need to beat me up. You are dealing with top management, just send an email. I told him send an email that, yes, this safety officer, because he doesn't even know where I was there. He thought I was just a figurehead here and there. He can just do whatever he likes. So I told him send email. So he was like, okay, I will call the top engineer from Qatar Energy. They are going to sack you. I said, bring the phone. He gave me his phone and I called him. That almost cost him his job. Because why? He does not understand. At the end of the day, he was begging. I said, okay, we need to go to school. We need to learn again. So then I organized a training. He started listening to me. I told him, look at how this thing works. It is procedure. We need to follow the procedure. We need to keep the communication. Everyone needs to understand. Don't breach this, because if you breach any aspect of the permit, it can cost the closure of your company, it can cost somebody's life, it can cost death and all that. So don't take it to be yourself that it's just a casual thing. So that was how we solved the problem, and from there move forward, we were able to work smoothly. So this is a very important aspect of work, because it's a management tool. The permit to work itself is a management system which most industry capitalize on, especially major hazard industry. So that is my little contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your contribution. And Mr. Christian, your hand has been up, so I'll give you the opportunity to contribute.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. When you are looking at permission work,
Mr. Christian, you're not loud enough.
okay, can you hear me now? When we are looking at permit to work process, we sometimes leave out the auditing of the permit to work documentation and process, because while selecting contractors or managing contractors, the planning stage is important, and then looking at the agreed methods treatment, the method that we're going to be using to do the work. If you don't audit as against agreed method treatment, the equipment, the personnel, the materials, and all of that, something could go wrong, even if you have wonderful documentation. I was in the project where we were to carry out a particular job, and there was going to be involved work at height. We had trainers, work at height certified personnel, and rescuers, but the rescue kit was not available. And this is height that, is high such that the any fall, people could die. The process owner has to come and say, okay, if this kit is not provided, you are not going to continue work. If they are not audited our permit to work documentation, that shouldn't have been found out. So permit to work auditing is very important. So if we have wonderful documentation and something to still go wrong, you see the pipeline case, you see the beating in Kando prospect. So all hands must be on deck. Another attention should also go to team up to see that processes or work that are not compatible should not go live at the same time. So for instance, hot job, looking at cutting and welding at the same time. How the case where they were welding and they were using other certificates to cut. And then the hot patterns or welding flags from the arc welding operations were dropping on the hose of the other certificate, and there was fire. It took a brave personnel to go, cut off the first supply to save the whole crew in that particular platform from getting engulfed with fire. So, apart from having a good system in place, ensure that when we go to a large extent, to also audit permit to work documentation as against agreed method statement and materials required to execute that job. Thank you. That's from us, my own contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christian. Though there was noise in your background, but we were able to grab one or two from your contribution. So we really appreciate you. The next person is Mr. Femi. Your hand has been up. Mr. Femi, you can go ahead now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to you all. I want to appreciate us for the faithfulness in keeping up to this 4 o'clock time and ensuring that every week we have something to discuss on. God bless you. Okay, my simple contribution, and which is part of learning from experience, is that as far as permit to work is concerned, we need to ensure that our permits are location specific. Most times, because contractors and subcontractors wants to be mischievous, they give a generic location. So even when you want to carry out supervision, they tell you, for example, now you're working in a refinery. Where in the refinery? Okay, maybe the refinery is very into area A, B, C. Where in area A are you working? You just put area A. The assessment you may have for a particular area may not be the same assessment you will have for another area. So I want to encourage that our permits should be location specific. I've had a situation where a subcontractor raised a permit and gave a particular location, and the permit was approved based on the fact that as far as that location was concerned, everything was safe. But when the inspection will get to site, when the supervisor will get to site to check on the ongoing job, you see that they are working in a totally different area, different from where they put on the permit that they were going to use the permit. So most times I've seen colleagues fall to this mischievousness of our subcontractors, giving a generic location, and they will defend themselves. Oh, I didn't put on the permit that I'm going to work here, so I just put this location, and because of that, I could use it anywhere. So I will, and the same thing also goes for equipment. In my last location, we made it a compulsion that if you are using a crane, the plate number of the crane put on the permit, on the lifting permit, because we've seen a situation where inspection was carried out for a particular crane, and while the job was ongoing, they discovered that the crane could not completely complete the job, and they changed crane using the same permit. So these are the mischievousness of our people on site, which as our supervisors from the safety angle, we should be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Femi. That was a very wonderful contribution. And I'm sure that many of us here have had that experience where people try to trick the system. So the next person is...
Sorry, let me say one thing briefly before the next person. Sorry, before I forget. Basically, when we look at this permit to work system, I discovered certain things in some certain industry. I know when Mr. Andrew was saying, he made mention of safety officer is not supposed to do this, do that, do this when it comes to permit. You know, that was why when I was giving my presentation, I said in some industry, you see some certain things happening. In fact, in some industry, you find out that it is even the safety, either representative of officer who topple with such responsibility. Okay, like for example, when you go to the facility, in fact, I've seen some facility that, especially when you go to the hotel, okay, you see it is from the engineering department, you just find one security issuing permit. You get the point? So, which for me probably is not even more safe at that point. But in some facility that is not large, you know, when we talk about the oil and gas, it's even the facility itself. Okay, so in such kind of facility, it's a very large facility that they will not tell you, because you will see everybody has his role. Your role, if you want, the issuer will be there, the coordinator, the permit, the HSE coordinator will be there, and so on and so forth. Those who's going to supervise the process will be different. But in some cases where the facility is a very small facility, you understand, you see they will not begin to go and employ one person. Oh, this person is responsible for this, one person is responsible for this. So at the end of the day, you discover that such things are tied, you know, as responsibility within the safety. That is why, you know, for me, I just believe as a safety practitioner, that is why you see most people who are even issuing it, when you look at their background, sometimes most of them, they might have safety background, apart from being an engineer or supervisor of maybe any work. So it all depends on industry. You know, like I said, in facility is not too as the way you see it in probably the oil and gas, the process, the construction. So most of the time they merge all this work to put on one person as probably, it might be a safety, but that might just be his job. He might not be going out doing inspection and all that. So you might see that he's stopping with such a responsibility at that point. I think that is what I would like to contribute. And one other important thing again is that, see, like what I do in my site also is this. When I review contractor risk assessment and method statements, there's an area I always emphasize, okay, in relation to permit to work. When they give me, when I scrutinize their method statement, risk assessment, especially the method statement, when it comes to all those precautions they are going to take, if you did not state, I will always go back and make a comment on your method statement. You must make a statement that you must comply and follow the procedure stated in our permit to work system. If you do not comply with the requirement for permit to work system, your work or your permit to, in fact, you will not even get the permit in the first place. So they need to have that in their commitment in their method statement, so that when they want to violate or when they want to go against, we can be able to stop them. We can say, yes, this is you stated in your method statement. In your risk assessment, you say you are going to provide this. You haven't provided it. So it's an indictment on them. If they have stated in their risk assessment and method statement that they are going to do like this, follow this procedure, comply with such thing within the site, and they do not comply with them. That is what normally I used to hold them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Engineer Tayab, please unmute and make your contribution.
Thank you very much, Johnson, for giving me the opportunity.
Okay.
I will not speak too much, just session is going to end and I just want to add something more. So today's topic is quite interesting from point of view of HSE, compliance towards rules and regulation in the industry. So I think for each and every activity, we should have comply with permit issuer permit procedures. So that will be gonna more and more secure, safe system of work of the any activity which are being doing, so that we can assess all the which are being hazardous to the worker and all the environments. So that will be gonna more beneficial. So that is a mandatory condition of the HSE permit to work PTW. So I just add these comments. So thank you very much for giving opportunity. So that's all the contents you have already covered. And I just think there is nothing more. We have to add it more. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Engineer Tayab. We appreciate all of us for joining today. And we are so happy that we are not carried away by the holiday season. We still remain faithful to this time. So everyone, Mr. Christian, thank you for joining after a very long time. We'll miss you, and we enjoyed, we still remember that your wonderful presentation. And we are looking forward to having you again.
Anytime, sir.
Mr. Stephen, Mr. Andrew, Mr. Pascal, Mr. Femi, Mr. James, Sammy, Mr. Sarat, Mr. Leslie Yekini. We thank all of you for staying up to this moment. We'll stay beyond our time, but thank you all for your patience. So if you require a CPD certificate, just remember to send me a private message so that I will not miss your name when I'm getting the certificates ready. Okay, so next week, Thursday, we'll come again by 6 p.m. Qatar time to discuss another interesting topic. So thank you guys for joining today.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Do follow.
Thank you, sir.
Subscribe.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Updated. All right.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.